Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Let's see. Really? Alrighty, guys. Welcome to the end of a new decade. We're talking about the end of the 2010s. What the heck is that even called? Actually, what I would like to do is actually get this so I can actually see it. That would be super cool. Yeah. No, what I'd like to see is my. This is difficult. This is difficult. Are we live streaming? I think we are, but who knows? It's been a while since I used StreamYard for anything. um. Okay, there we go. There I am. Look at me. That's funny. All right, which one are we? We're over here now, huh? No, that's not us. Which is us? Good Lord, this is more confusing than I possibly can imagine. They want me to subscribe to this thing? I don't think so. All right, so we are live. So we are doing good. Hopefully, everyone's having a good day. And we're going to be talking end of the decade. So we're going to talking a decade's worth of baseball. Before we get into the decade stuff, let's talk about the 2019 season, 2019 season. So, quite an interesting season. The highs and lows. So let's review. So in the National League, it was Atlanta, 4 games up on Washington with a 97 and 65 record. In the Central Division, St. Louis 2 up on Milwaukee. It came down to basically the last weekend there. St. Louis needed to win, and Milwaukee needed St. Louis to lose. St. Louis was playing Chicago in the last weekend, and I think they ended up taking like 3 out of 4 of those games, which was quite surprising because Chicago had a lot to play for. I thought, hey, Sports Time Machine, what's going on? How you doing, buddy? Good to see you. I don't know if you got a chance, but you want to jump on with me, let me know. So St. Louis in the Central Division by 2 games over Milwaukee. In the West, Dodgers ran away with it. It wasn't even close. It was a probably already decided by the All-Star break. They won by 21 games. And a lot of people forget they won by 21 games over Arizona, not over San Francisco or Colorado. Both San Francisco and Colorado were in it for a while. But then they faded at the end real bad, and Arizona ended up taking second place there. All right, American League, of course, in the East, the Yankees, 7 games over Tampa Bay. So Yankees with 103 wins, 59 losses, 636 winning percentage. Not bad, but they weren't even the best in their league, actually. In the Central Division, it was Minnesota, 8 games up on Cleveland. That was a little surprising. Minnesota with 101 wins, 61 losses, and beat Cleveland by 8 games. I remember Minnesota was about 5 to 8 games up pretty much from, we'll say, May through about, what was it, about August. And Minnesota lost a bunch of games. Cleveland won a bunch of games, and they were down to like 2 games up on Cleveland, and everybody thought, oh boy, here they go. Cleveland's going to overtake them. Minnesota's going to falter, and I didn't see that happening. I think Cleveland just got on a hot streak, but baseball is all about averages. It's all about the numbers, right? If you're a numbers guy, that's why you love baseball, or one of the reasons why you love baseball. It's all about the numbers. So if a team goes 15-5, sooner or later they're going to go 5-15 because all teams are barely above 500. So I just had a feeling that Cleveland, they had a good streak, but sooner or later it was going to catch up to them, and it did. So Minnesota ended up winning by 6 games over Cleveland. In the West, Houston, 107 wins, 55 losses, 10 games up on Oakland, who Oakland had 97 wins. So 97 wins for Oakland as a wild card in the American League would have been good enough to win the East or the Central in the National League. So best record in the league, winning percentage, was Houston with a 660. Los Angeles in the National League with a 654 average. And then, of course, we had the ebb and flows, ups and downs of the playoffs. Let's look at the playoff recap from the 2019 season. Righto. All right. So in the American League, of course, we had Tampa Bay and Oakland going at it in the wild card game. It was a very interesting game. 2 really good teams that, 96 win team and a 97 win team going at it to see who was going to, make it through the playoffs. And it was, like I said, 96 and 97 wins would have been enough to win the Central Division in the National League. But unfortunately, Tampa Bay's in with the Yankees and Oakland's in with Houston, which obviously doesn't make it very easy for those teams to win it. So, of course, Tampa Bay ended up taking that game quite handily, I believe, if I remember correctly. It was, what was that wild card game score? I think Tampa Bay got out to a pretty big lead, and then, in my stupid mouth, I'm literally, if I get mad enough, you're going to watch me rage and throw this mouse up against the wall. That's how mad and frustrated I am with this stupid mouse. And normally I have my other mouse, but I can't use my mouse plugged in when I'm live streaming because I don't have enough plugs on the front of my computer. It's just a cluster. Anywho's, Tampa Bay, let's see if I'm not mistaken, they won 5-1. Yeah, so I got out to a pretty good lead early and just held on. And of course, they went on to face the Astros with the best record. And to be honest, the Astros jumped out 2-0. It looked like, it's over. But then Tampa Bay won 2 in a row, got right back in it, sent the game back to Houston. And a lot of people forget already, it's only been a couple months now. But if the if the Rays could have taken that 5th game, the Astros would have been knocked out in the first round, which would have been a huge upset. Huge upset. So good for Tampa Bay. I mean, for a small market, a lot of people, even the wife, she doesn't follow baseball. She doesn't know the players. She doesn't know the team. She knows the local team, the Rays. And then, every night on the sportscast, the sports announcer would be like, oh, there was another 5,264 people that went to the Rays game today, for a very small market, not well followed. I'm going to slide this over a little bit. Not well followed team. And then I knocked it off. Oh my gosh. What did I do now? Is that better? Let's see. Can you guys still see me? Huh? Hope so. All right. They did really well. They went up against the number one team in the American League, and they gave them everything that they wanted. And of course, the other American League division division series game was the Yankees. Minnesota, we all know Minnesota has a problem facing the Yankees. It's just something, it's just something psychological, or something like the Buckeyes cannot beat Clemson for whatever reason it is. It doesn't matter the year. It doesn't matter if they're a better team, which they were a better team. They just can't beat Clemson, and that's the way Minnesota is with the New York. They can't beat them in the playoffs for whatever reason. I was thinking this was going to be the year. No. The Yankees took it pretty handily, 3-0, swept them right out of there, which means they got to rest and recuperate and everything, while the Astros and the Rays were going into 5-game series. So they got a good chance to rest and recuperate. So everyone was thinking, well, maybe the Yankees might be able to pull out the upset. But once again, that wasn't going to happen, as the Astros shut down the Yankees in 4 games. 4-2. I think just their pitching staff was able to get the Yankees' tendency for the long ball, which was what drove them to 103 wins this season. But they also have a tendency to strike out against good pitching. So, of course, the Astros had good pitching, which made them strike out as opposed to hit a lot of home runs. And that was kind of their downfall there against the Astros, I believe. So the Astros ended up going on to the World Series off against the National League. Let's talk about the National League. And we're recapping the 2019 season. And then we'll talk about the decade. And if you are watching and want to jump in on our live chat, let me know. And we'll see if we can get you on. So in the National League, of course, it was the Nationals and the Brewers, which was a epic clash. And a lot of people, again, it's only been a couple months, but a lot of people forget, the Nationals were actually losing that game until the 8th inning, and Milwaukee ended up bringing in their reliever, Hader, who was 37 saves on the season for Josh Hader, 37 saves. So it was like, oh, well, we're just going to bring in Hader. We're going to win. And somehow, some way, what was it? Baby Shark, right? Baby Shark. Who's going to forget Baby Shark? 2019 was the year of the Baby Shark. Oh, my gosh. Just the name of it is going to drive people insane. But the Baby Shark came through, and they got him. It was 4-3 Nationals. And if I'm not mistaken, it was, where is the box score? Box score says, dun, dun, dun. Final. Come on. Give me the box score. There we go. Yeah. Nationals. 3 runs in the bottom of the 8th inning. 3 runs in the bottom of the 8th inning. Remember, the Nationals scored 4 runs on 5 hits. So they made every hit count, especially against Josh Hader. 3 runs in the bottom of the 8th inning to take that game over the Brewers, or they would have been knocked out. Now, of course, we have to talk about we got to talk about the national season when we talk about the Nationals because it's going to be one of those things talked about for a long time, I think. May, right? We did a baseball preview show in March. We did an end of April review show on my channel here. Go check them out if you want. We did one at the end of May, and at the end of April, end of May, and the Astros were like 19-31, and everyone was like, "Oh, Dave Martinez is the worst manager ever. He doesn't know what he's doing. The Nationals suck." Just hammered on my show. I won't talk specifically about who or why, but I mean they were just the bandwagon jumpers were jumping. They were jumping off the bridge like you couldn't believe it, right? And somehow, some way, all of a sudden, David, um, the manager, I can't remember his name all of a sudden, Dave Martinez, was all of a sudden a good manager because his team came together. And I remember before when we did the baseball preview show, I went to some spring training games over on the east coast of Florida, watched the Cardinals face off against the Nationals in 2 games. And I watched those games and I could just see a difference between the Cardinals and the Nationals. Now, of course, it's just a 2-game sample, but man, being a Cardinal fan, following the team, I know who the good players are on their team. I know what is expected of them, and they made the Cardinals look bad. And I'm like, wow, the Nationals are a pretty good team. They got some pretty good players on their team. They have Soto, they have Rendon. They got a pretty deep lineup. They have Strasburg, they have Scherzer. They can't be this bad. I did not jump bandwagon. Go back and watch these episodes. I was not a bandwagon jumper out there. I was like, nah, I think the Nationals are going to be okay. I can't see them being as bad as they were. As we talked about earlier in this episode, baseball is all about the numbers, guys. It's all about the numbers. If you go 5-15, sooner or later you're going to go 15-5, right? So, of course, the Nationals got a couple bad streaks. 5-15, 5-15, and all of a sudden you're 19-31, right? But sooner or later you're going to get these 15-5, 15-5, and it's going to start averaging out, and the real team's going to show up. I kept telling people, listen to me. Nobody wanted to listen to me, but you had to listen because all of a sudden they started making a push, and they're in a very tough division with Atlanta, Philadelphia, who everyone thought was going to be much better, and of course the Mets. Now they are with Miami, but hey Dale, how you doing? Good to see you. Thanks for coming on by. So they're in a very tough division: Atlanta, Washington, New York, and Philadelphia. Everyone in the preview show thought this was going to be the toughest division with these 4 teams fighting it out. So the Nationals had a big hill to climb, and damn, did they climb it! They climbed it pretty quick and pretty fast. And they, like I said, these averages, bad, but sooner or later you're gonna get these goods, which are gonna make the good teams stand out. And they started getting back in the race, and soon enough, they got the wild card, which we talked about. So let's talk about the other games. So of course, come here, you. So, of course, the Nationals had to take on the Dodgers, right? The Dodgers, the powerhouse Dodgers, who's been sitting there all season, resting their players the last 2 weeks of the season, not playing anyone because they're 20 games up in their division. They're not even trying. They're just basically sitting back and waiting to find out who they're playing. And whoever they're going to play, they're going to just dominate because they have Kershaw, they have Ryu, they have, a bunch of good pitchers. Their lineup is stacked with Cody Bellinger, Kiki Hernandez, as Baseball Demos likes to call him. So it's a foregone conclusion. Nationals, they barely squeak by. But oh, wait, my friend, that's why they play the games, right? That's why they play them. And if my mouse would stop acting like a jerk, thank you. So, again, Nationals down. Had to fight their way back. Baby shark, 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 baby shark, shark, shark. Of course, the baby shark had to come back somehow, some way in that fifth game. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was in extra innings. Yes, it was. 7-3. Grand salami in the 10th inning. Who can forget it? Of course. Sends shockwaves through the Dodgers organization, upsetting them, sending them on to the winner between the Cardinals and the Braves. So let's talk about that series. Oh, what a series that was. That was going to be an epic clash. Two pretty good teams. I think most people had the Braves favored in that series because they had a better record in the season. They had home field advantage. They had really good pitching, which nobody thought. And of course, they had a pretty solid lineup going up against St. Louis, which didn't have the greatest pitching. Their lineup has been average at best. I don't even know where they ranked in offense for the season, but it couldn't have been very high. And of course, that was a really good series. The Cardinals, I believe, was it the first game they won or the second game? I can't remember. Let's look at it. The Cardinals took the first game, and I thought, whoa, that was a surprise. 7-6 in Atlanta. And I'm like, oh, if their offense can keep going, they can compensate for their okay pitching. They don't have bad pitching; they have okay pitching. But I mean, who's their starters? Who's their number one? Right? They don't have a number one that stands out like all the other playoff teams, right? Then the Braves won game 2. And then went back to St. Louis, so tied up 1 game apiece. And then it was like, okay, so game 3, going to be a big one. Whoever wins this has got the advantage. Braves take that one 3-1, and all of a sudden the Cardinals had 0 runs and 1 run, which is what they did all season long, right? If you go back and look at, they'd score 8 runs one game, and then they'd have 0, 1, 2. And then they'd have 7 runs, and then they'd be like 1, 1, 2. Something really bad like that all season long. And I thought, oh boy, here we go. They got 0 runs. They got 1 run. It's going to be over. But somehow, someway in game number 4 in extra innings, 5-4 victory walk-off for the Cardinals, 5-4. But then it went back to Atlanta. And I'm like, I did not feel good about this at all. I'm like, nope. Atlanta's going to take this. I wasn't even going to watch the game. I wasn't going to even watch the game. I'm like, I just don't want to watch them lose this. But I watched it. It was a Saturday or Sunday afternoon game. I forget what it was. Epic first inning. Holy cow. If you don't remember what had happened, that was one of the most interesting first innings ever in any baseball game around ever played. If you go to Baseball Reference, you know how they have each play by inning by out and stuff? It's like a page and a half long of what happened, right? So Dexter Fowler walked, then Colton Wong bunted to a ground out to move Fowler over. Then Goldsmith singled. Then Ozuna singled. Yadier Molina reached on an error. Then there was a walk, which Fultonevich walked in Carpenter. Then Tommy Edman, God bless him, great guy. Tommy Edman steps up, doubles to right field. Before you know it, all of a sudden it's 3-0 or 2-0 at that point. And then DeYoung intentionally was walked. Then the pitcher comes up, who, You got to think that's an out, right? Nope. Not intentionally walked. He walked him. Carpenter scores. Fowler then comes in doubles. Colton Wong comes in doubles. Goldsmith lines out. Marcel Ozuna struck out swinging, but then an error on the catcher. Wild pitch gets by the catcher, goes to the backstop. And Ozuna, who was walking back to the dugout, starts running to first, makes it to first in time. Then Yadier Molina grounded out. At that point, it was 10-0 in the bottom of the first inning. I believe it was the first time in Major League Baseball history. In the top of the first inning, any team has ever scored 10 runs. And I remember the wife came in to bring me lunch or whatever it was. And I just had this look on my face, and she's like, "What's wrong?" And I just pointed at the screen, and she looked at it, and she's like, "What?" And it had the little score up in the corner. I'm like, "Look at this score." She's like, "Oh, your team's winning 10-0. Good for you." And I'm like, "Look at the inning." And she's like, "Oh, it's the first inning. Oh, wow, they're playing really good." I'm like, "Oh God, yeah, they're playing really good, I guess." Holy cow! Yeah. Wow. So of course that gave the Cardinals home field advantage against the Nationals, and I'm thinking, ooh, could it be the year? Could it be another 2011? Could it be? No, it just couldn't be. It just couldn't be. Once again, the Cardinals offense decided to take a month off and relive my pain and agony all over again as this Nationals swept the Cardinals out of the playoffs. 4-0. Wasn't even close. I think the Cardinals only ended up scoring like 6 runs in 4 games or something like that. 0, 1, 1, and 4. So 4, 5, 6. Yes, they scored 6 runs in 4 games. And they gave up 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. They gave up 20 runs. So you're not going to win when you score 6 runs. Yeah, their offense, it was over, right? It was just over. But it was a good run while it lasted. So that put the Nationals against the Astros. Now, who would have thought? Who in their bright mind would have thought, hey, Nationals, Astros, World Series, right? Well, let's see. How do I do this? How do I share my screen with all my wonderful folks out there? Here we go. Let's share this. All right, so let's make this big for you all so we can see this. This is our baseball preview show on my channel here from March 24th, 2019. There's a good friend, Rob, exclamation point, along with Tribe Fan 879, and of course BBG, Bleacher Bums Gaming, and myself doing our end of the year preview show. So let's just listen in and see what happens. Ooh, wait. Come on. Turn the volume up for you guys a little bit.
Good chance to be 500. I think they're a good team. I think the Reds. I think the Cubs are dead last. I really do. I'm picking them last in the division. They did nothing to help themselves. They got a lot of good bats, but looking in National League, everything like you talked about where they play in Wrigley Field, the little bandbox. Well, you look from the National League East all the way to the bottom of the West. Everybody's bringing in boys who can knock the ball over the fence, and they're going to have fun. I think they're going to have some fun in Chicago. I really do. And the visiting teams will. And I don't think the Cubs can come near 500 this year. I don't think so. Anyway, I think the Pirates are better than them. I don't think much, but a little bit. I think it's going to be close. But the Reds, people weighing on the Reds right now.
Oh my God, Rob, shut up. Move on, buddy.
12-2 or 12-4 to start the season. Beware of St. Louis, beware of Milwaukee. Cincinnati's home, and they're not going anywhere this year. They're going to be tough.
All right. Any teams you see that are?
Oh my God, I must have clicked on the wrong spot. All right, here we go.
All right. I got to find out who I had. Got to look through my sheets to see. All right.
Oh, we're going to pick Cy Young and MVP as well.
We'll do that at the very end because we were running out of time last time, so I figured we'll get the World Series and then we'll talk Cy Young and MVP. So my matchup for the World Series in 2019, I think the American League playoffs is going to be pretty interesting. I think in the National League, there's going to be a couple powerhouse teams, and they're going to blow through it. It's going to come down to the Nationals and the Dodgers, and I think the Nationals are going to the World Series. And in the American League, wow, it's going to be a crazy playoffs in there, and anything can happen in the playoffs in the American League like it's happened the last few years. But I think the two teams battling out to go to the World Series are going to be the Yankees and the Astros. And I think the Astros take it in 7. So my World Series preview is Astros Nationals. So let's find out who gets.
All right, so that was my preview. Now let's get to my actual pick here. Let's see here.
$28? No, we're not. It's going to be the Nationals over the Yankees.
Oh, wait.
7.
Wait a minute. Where did my
Houston?
Except for maybe some pitchers. $300 million. This big name. All right, I'm Anthony picking the Nationals versus the Yankees. We have Tri-Fan picking the Red Sox versus the Brewers. And we have Rob picking Colorado versus the Astros. So now we're going to give you our World Series champion and why we believe that. So let's go to the Magic 8 Ball again. That's me. Damn. I wanted to go last. Damn it. All right, I'm actually going to pick something, and I'm going to tell you that's going to change the way baseball is done next off season. I'm going to pick the Nationals to win it all against the Astros in 6 games, and I think that a lot of teams are going to see that these big name free agents, you can win without them, especially somebody like Bryce Harper. And all of a sudden, these big contracts are not going to be they're not going to come to fruition anymore because the owners are going to see that the Nationals just lost a guy and it didn't cost them $300 million or $300 million plus. And now I can get 2 guys to replace that guy for $10 million a season, and we're twice as better off spending our money instead of getting these big free agents. So I think it's going to change the landscape when the Nationals defeat the Astros this year, and the owners are no longer going to spend big money on these free agents, except for maybe some pitchers, the pitchers. And what will end up happening eventually is the players are going to get upset because they're not getting all this money that they're getting now. And I think in 3 or 4 years, the strike happens. I'm just predicting it now, unfortunately. And it's all because the Nationals win this season and the owners see that they don't need to spend the money.
Ah, there you go. What do you think of that? Huh? Ha ha ha. Awesome sauce there. So yes, I had successfully predicted the World Series. Not only what happened to my screen here? Hello. Not only did I predict who was going to be in the World Series correctly, 100% correctly, I predicted the winner correctly. And I probably should have said 7 games, but I wimped out thinking, nah, I'll just go 6 games. But that's still pretty darn good. Pretty darn good pick by me. Not sure why my StreamYard has disappeared. Oh, well, there we go. Alrighty, so there you go. That is that. I thought it would be interesting to look back. I do have to give kudos. The Nationals were actually kind of they were kind of a sexy pick at the beginning of the 2000. Oh my gosh, seriously, what are you doing to me? The Nationals were kind of a sexy pick at the beginning of the 2019 season. I think several of our good friends out there actually had the Nationals picked. Bleacher Bums Gaming, I think, had them going up against the Yankees. Tribe Fan, I think, had the Astros, and I forget who he had the Astros up against. Maybe Milwaukee or the Dodgers. I forget. But our good friend out there, Clinton Parks, got to give him kudos. He also predicted Nationals and the Astros, and I believe he picked the Nationals to win it. I believe. I'm trying to remember, but I think he did. But he had the World Series correctly, which is not an easy feat, as you know. We had 10 or 12 of our good subscriber friends out there come in, do their predictions. And if it's, hard, let me tell you, you can think, going into the 2020 season, who are you going to predict? Right? Is it going to be the Astros again? Is the Yankees going to step up? Is there going to be another surprise team out there? Is Oakland finally going to do something? So it might seem easy, but it isn't. It isn't. But so I'm very happy that I did that. So I obviously know what I'm talking about, right? So that's the outcome there. We're talking about the World Series. Astros went up 3-1, and I thought, oh, I don't want to watch these last 2 games because I do not want to see the Astros win again. I don't want to see it. So I don't think I didn't even watch game 6, but then when I found out the Nationals, I think we were busy that night anyways, or whatever the situation was. But then I found out they won, and I'm like, oh, game 7, maybe they got a chance. And, one of those, again, kind of epic struggles back and forth. It was, if I can get my mouse to click on there. Yeah, it was pretty close until the Nationals broke it open. That's right. Oh, that's right. So the Astros were up 1-0 after 2. No scoring in the third, no scoring in the fourth. In the 5th inning, the Astros scored another run. It was 2-0 Astros. They were on cruise control with Garrett Cole on the mound. And then they pulled Cole, I think, in the 7th inning. And that's where the Nationals struck for 3 in the 7th, 1 in the 8th, 2 in the 9th. 6-2 victory. Shocked the world after their 19-31 start and won their first World Series. So congratulations to all the National fans out there and the Nationals themselves. The first World Series. They've been on the cusp of doing something really good, right? Made the playoffs, got knocked out. Made the playoffs, got knocked out. Made the playoffs, got knocked out. So, I mean, they've been a pretty consistent team. They just haven't been able to win anything. And once they somehow, some way found that first victory against the Milwaukee Brewers in the playoff game that no one gave them a shot in, and nobody gave them a shot against Hader, and somehow they were able to do that. It was like opening the floodgates, and okay, we go face the Dodgers. Well, we'll just have to find a way to beat them, and that's what good teams can do. That's what really good teams can do. All right, so that was a 2019. Was Bryce Harper? Was there a factor that there was no Bryce Harper? To be honest, I think this goes with all sports. When you have one player that seems to be better than everyone else, what ends up happening is that player, how do I put it? The rest of the team relies on that player to do it all the time. And so it's not a team anymore, if that makes sense. So when Bryce Harper was there, the rest of the Nationals are like, oh, we got Bryce Harper, he'll do it for us. And because he 8 times out of 10, he would do it for him. when you lose a player like that, everybody needs to then say, oh, we don't have Mr. X anymore. And to be honest, to be completely honest, this is why I think the LA Angels have not even made the playoffs the last few years, is because Mike Trout is there and everyone relies on Mike Trout to do everything instead of having them be the player that they should be and step up to the plate. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into that, but I mean, if you look at any good sport like that, anybody that has a superstar, they all rely on Michael Jordan, right, for basketball, right? You got Michael Jordan, right? Nobody else needs to do anything. Just give the ball to Michael Jordan, and he'll do it. And he did it over and over and over again, right? And that's the way mentality is for all the teams out there. And baseball is the same way. When you got a superstar player, the other players think, I don't have to do anything because we have Joe Blow, or we have Mike Trout, or we have Bryce Harper, or whoever the situation is. Now, the LA Angels, I think I mean, Mike Trout is, according to most experts, the best baseball player in the world right now. And he's been that way for 8-10 years now. And when you have that player on your team, it's hard for you as a player to step up because you don't want to outshine the guy that's the best baseball player in the world, right? And it can make very bad situations. So I would rather, if you look at hockey's a perfect example, right? Hockey is an awesome example. If you got a one-team superstar like Ovechkin on the Washington Capitals, right? And everybody relies on Ovechkin to carry the team, and he carries the team all those years, but he can't get over the hump because what happens is he finally gets against a good team, and that other team says, okay, here's what we're going to do. 5 players cover this guy, ignore everyone else. And he can't beat 5 players by himself. He's not that good. And so he would fail year after year after year until they finally decided to make it more of a team aspect. They brought in a coach that made it more of a team. And then the Washington Capitals won the Stanley Cup because it wasn't. Look at another example of let's talk about the Tampa Bay Lightning. This is NHL history in the regular season. They're playing the number 8 seed Columbus Blue Jackets, who barely made the playoffs by winning 5 of their last 6 games. And of course, you got 2 powerhouse players on that team in Stamkos and Kuznetsov. And what did Columbus do? They shut those 2 players down. Nobody else could step up for the Lightning, and Columbus just outplayed them. Go back and watch that series. That's a classic example of relying on a superstar too much. Kind of like sucks the energy out of the team. Yeah, I think it's just like, if I was on the team, right, I'm like, oh, I struck out. Now, who cares? So-and-so is going to come up now. He'll take care of he'll take care of the problem. So you don't take any responsibility for yourself. You don't try to make yourself better because you always have that fallback on player X. Yeah. So you think the Nationals were probably a better team without Harper? Absolutely. Absolutely. Go watch the 2 teams play. They are completely night and day. You have to have other players step up, obviously, but let's just say 2 years ago when Harper was at like his peak with the Nationals, right? And then we have Anthony Rendon going on the free agent market. How much money do you think Anthony Rendon is going to make on the free agent market 2 years ago? He's not going to make jack squat because nobody even heard of him. Nobody could see what he could do because he had the fallback. He had the, I don't need to be a good player because I have player X on my team. As soon as they got rid of Bryce Harper, the good players had to step up and say, "Oh, well, I gotta make myself better." And now, he signed a big contract because of that. If he'd have been on the free agent market 2 years ago, he wouldn't have got nothing. He wouldn't have got nothing. So it's just human nature, right? It's just human nature to be like that. So anyways, so that's kind of my rant on that. Since it was asked by Wesley, thanks for coming on by. Whew. All right, so let's talk about the decade now. So decade, wow, I can't believe it's been a whole decade. So let's look back. 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, right? So you got 10 years to talk about. 6 National League teams won the World Series, 4 for the American League, which is a little bit surprising. A lot of people would have thought it would have been 5-5 or more. But a lot of people forget the Giants won in 2010, they won in 2012, and they won in 2014. The American League teams that won the World Series, of course, are the Red Sox, the who else was it? Trying to remember. Oh, the Astros, Red Sox, Astros, and the Red Sox twice. Right. That's it. And then of course the surprise team that everyone forgets about, and that was 2015 when the Royals beat the New York Mets. Hey, Clinton Barks, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Good to see you. So 6 for the National League, 4 for the American League. I would have thought it, just off the top of my head, if somebody would have said, "Oh, who won more in the decade of the 2010s?" I would have probably said, "Oh, it's 5-5 or maybe 6-4 in favor of the National League." But the Nationals win. We had the Cubs win. We had the Giants win 3 times. And we had, who else did we have? Oh, of course, the St. Louis Cardinals. I almost forgot. How could I forget? So the 2010s decade, I think, is going to be most notable for a few things. First of all, the Cubs winning the World Series in 2016. Not a big fan of that, but everyone else is. I'm not a big fan of that. Not a big fan of the Cubs winning and breaking the curse. Curses are good for baseball. We don't have that anymore with the Red Sox and the Cubs winning now. So all that history, all of that is gone now. It's just ruined because these teams finally won. I mean, if you're a Cubs fan, it's good. If you're a Red Sox fan, it's good, but it's not good for baseball. Go back and watch YouTube. If you go and say, "Hey, let's look at the Cubs," there's going to be all of these videos on how the Cubs couldn't win the World Series and how there's all these curses out there and all the bad things that had happened to them. And then since they won the World Series, there's like no videos on the Cubs other than they won the World Series. That's it. You watch the one on them winning the World Series, that's it. So is it better to have 20 videos or one video? I'm just asking. It's not good unless you're obviously rooting for that team. It's not good for baseball, but it will be known forever for the Cubs fans. Yes, they finally won the World Series, so good for them. Yes, good for them. It'll be another 108 years before they get back, but don't worry about that. We'll all be dead by that time, so it doesn't matter. Then we got to and the problem was a lot of people out there, if the Cubs would have beat like the Red Sox or the Astros or the Royals or the Tigers or somebody like that, right? It wouldn't have been such a big deal, right? The Cubs won. They beat a better team or whatever, but they were up against the Cleveland Indians, the other team that hasn't won since 1947. And poor Cleveland. They have not won anything, no sports championships in their history, blah, blah, blah. And Cleveland was up 3-1. And they were a rainstorm from winning against the Cubs. If it wasn't for that delay, because the rainstorm came in after Raji Davis hit that home run off of Chapman and tied the game up. If it wasn't for that rainstorm that came in after that, and when they had that break, I think the Cleveland would have taken that momentum, carried it on forever and ever. Amen. Yes, everyone was, not everyone, I shouldn't say everyone. A lot of people were rooting for Cleveland. I know that a lot of Cubs fans were obviously rooting for the Cubs, but if you just took somebody that didn't know baseball and they said, "Oh, you got the Chicago playing against Cleveland. Who do you want to see win?" I think most people, just most normal people on the street, would have said, "Oh, I guess Cleveland. They haven't won anything, blah blah blah." But yeah, if the Cubs would have beat like the Red Sox or the Tigers or the Yankees or anything like that, it wouldn't have been it's almost to me like a double whammy. The Cubs won, but then they also beat another team that everyone wanted to see win. Well, not everyone, but most people wanted to see win. So let's say hello to some of our friends out there. We got Phantomatic, excuse me, Clinton Parks, of course, Wesley Kring, these World Series winners, trends setters in the trends. What? I don't understand. Two of the big trends over the decade: defensive shifts, more and more relief pitcher specialization, both because of increased reliance on sabermetrics. Okay, so that's a good point. So another thing the 2010s are going to be known for, good point, is going to be the shift. And it's also going to be about pitcher specializations, lefty righties, lefty specialists, righty specialists, which, obviously more and more they get into this. They've been talking in this offseason about implementing the three batter rule. Any pitcher brought in must face three batters. I don't see the shift going away for 2 more years, because all these players that are in the minor leagues right now are being taught to actually hit the ball the opposite way so that they can defeat the shift. So I think in 2 more years, when these younger players start making the major leagues and they can start hitting it both directions, then teams will stop shifting and that'll just go away. It'll start to be more of a dinosaur. I don't know how many times the announcers on TV, when you're watching a game, say, "Oh, we got everybody on the right side. All the guy has to do is lay down a bunt to get a base hit," and the player doesn't do it. He tries to swing for the fence and grounds it to second base and gets thrown out. And I think, the only way to get rid of the shift, if you hate the shift, is to teach the players, this is how you hit it to the left side. This is how you hit it to the right side. This is how you bunt. And hopefully in a couple years, these players that are in the minors will be taught this stuff, which they've been teaching since the Little League, and somehow the big leaguers forgot to use it somehow. And hopefully they'll be bringing that back into the game. And if players can hit from both sides, there won't be shifts anymore. Let's see. Baseball demos. Oh, baseball demos. He's such a good man. He is such a good man. Again, if you watch if you're a subscriber, you watch a lot of my content, baseball demos. He's the one that actually got me inspired to do sports games on my channel by watching him, emulating what he did on his channel. He's just one of the best guys on the planet. Very knowledgeable about all things baseball, and he loves it when I say Mark Gubaza. It just sends little shivers down his spine. I know it. He loves it. And so I will always be known as the Mark Gubaza guy, because we did a replay from 1989, and Mark Gubaza pitched every 5th day. And every time I say Gubaza, I think David from Baseball Demos was going to take an ice pick and gouge out my eyes. But we love him anyways. He spent some of my money today, and I ended up picking up Action PC Baseball 2020 edition by his recommendation. So, David, if the game sucks, I'm coming after you, buddy. It's going to cost you. But I took his recommendation, Action PC Baseball 2020 DK Sports. Last day for the sale, I think he said, was today. So if you want it on sale, $5 off, put in a coupon code of upgrade, get another $5 off. It costs you like 35 bucks or whatever it is. But yeah. So the shifts, yeah. Pitcher specialization, they're going to try and get around that by making the pitcher pitch to 3 guys in a row. I think baseball. I think baseball tries to. It's kind of what. How do I put it? It's kind of what the NFL has become, right? The NFL has become almost a joke to some of us older folks because we remember the glory days, and then something happens in the game, so NFL changes the rules so that it prevents that thing from happening again, and now the game is turned into this check the camera every other play because we have to see whether he's in bounds, made a catch, hit somebody illegally, completed the catch all the way to the ground, and all this other bullshit nonsense. And I think that's baseball, unfortunately, is emulating some of the other sports and taking they want to go to this 3-pitch minimum. They want to do electronic strike zones. They want to do all these adjustments because of something, bad that happened or issues they have. All right. It's not the way to fix the game. It's not the way to fix the game. If you want to fix baseball, if I was the commissioner and I was going to fix baseball, all right, here's what I would do. It's very simple, right? You take all the umpires and you say, you guys are third baseman. You guys are first baseman. You guys are third. You cover third down the line. You cover first down the line. You cover place at second base. You're the home plate umpire, right? You must be good at your job. If you're not good at your job, we will get rid of you and find somebody that is good at your job. Instead of having the umpires rotate around, so one day they're umpire, one day they go to third base, right? So every 5th or 6th day, because of a game off or whatever, I think there's 6 umpires in a crew or 5 umpires in a crew, and so so every 5th day you get a new umpire. Well, so some guys are obviously better at looking at the ball coming in. They can see it better. They can follow it. They can track it better. But you only get that guy once every 5 days. No, bullshit. Bullshit. You want to fix the strike zone. You take the umpires, you put them in a big room, and you say, here is what a ball is. Here's what a strike is. And show it to them 1,000 times over and over and over and over and over again. And then you go say, go do it. If you don't do it right, we'll find somebody that can. It's as simple as that. Baseball makes millions and billions of dollars a year. If you have to pay an umpire to sit at home and twiddle his thumbs, who gives a hell? Who gives a frick? They don't do the job, get rid of them. Find somebody that can. It's as simple as that. Then when you start getting rid of all the bad umpires and you make the good umpires better by making it their job to be a good umpire, then all of a sudden you don't have to worry about automatic strike zones. You don't have to worry about all this other crap they want to institute because of, occasionally they miss a call. Sure, everyone misses a call every once in a while. That's fine. It's human nature. We all understand that. But it's not like it's a 3-2 pitch in the bottom of the 9th inning, and the whole game relies on this umpire getting this one call correctly. How many times a year? There's 2,884 baseball games a season. How many times in that 2,884 games does it come down to bottom of the 9th, 3-2 count, and the umpire has to get the call right, or win or lose the game for that one team. Hardly ever. Probably once in 10 seasons, maybe, right? Is it going to come down to that? So it's not like it's going to break the system if the umpires get the rules wrong occasionally. But all you have to do, if I was baseball, is to say, your job is to be an umpire. Your job is to be the guy on third baseline. Your job is to be the guy on first. Your job is to watch second base. How hard is that? They all have a specific job. They can do their specific jobs. They get better because they don't have to learn all these other things, right? They don't have to go to second base one day. They don't need to go to first base the next day. They don't need to go to third base the next day. All right? If that's too much, right? If that's too much, then you you give 6 guys to a crew. You make 3 of them umpires, and you make a first base guy, a third base guy, and a second base guy, and then the 3 umpires rotate. So you don't put, each umpire only does 1 every 3 games, right? So you don't have to worry about, any kind of bias or fatigue on the umpire. He's only got to do 1 on every 3 days. Baseball, which makes billions and billions of dollars, can't afford to hire another 30 guys to add to an umpire crew? Really? 30 guys, which makes, we'll say they make 150,000 a year. No, we'll give them 200,000. So you have 200,000 times 30. That's like what? 30 to, that would be like $6 million. You can't afford an extra $6 million to hire an extra 30 guys to become umpires? Really? Are you kidding me? Seriously. You would rather take that $30 million and try to implement some kind of a wacky automatic strike zone thing, which may or may not even work half the time correctly. I don't know about that. Let's see. Let me check up on the chat since I got off on a tangent again. Yep, the roster, the PC Action baseball game. Yep, I picked it up because of baseball demos. Baseball is turned into what I call the girly manly league. 5-inning victory for pitchers and 5 to 6 man rotations. What happened to complete games? What happens to pitchers like early win? That I see what you're saying, Clinton, but that doesn't bother me at all. That part doesn't bother me at all because there's different eras of baseball. I mean, you can't compare the 20s to the 50s. You can't compare the 50s to the 70s. You can't compare the 70s to the 90s. You can't compare the 90s to the 2010s. There are going to be differences. The way the players are, what they're required to do is just going to be different. How in shape they are, how not in shape they are, how much off-season activity. So whether or not there's 6-man rotations, 5-man rotations, or whatever. There's going to be differences between the different eras, and some people might like the 20s, some might like the 50s, one might like the 70s, some might like the 90s. But I think there's going to be change. It's just inevitable, right? Go back and watch football from the 60s. Okay, go back and watch an actual football game from 1960. You'll hate it. Right? If you're like me and you grew up in the 80s and the 90s, right? You will not appreciate football in the 60s, where it was run left, run right, run left, run right, run up the middle, throw it. Run left, run right, do it over again. It is the most boring thing ever. There was no strategy defensively. Okay, we talk about the Ice Bowl, right? Green Bay down on the 1-yard line, right? Green Bay's down on the 1 yard line. They need 1 yard in the Ice Bowl against Dallas to win the game. Everyone in the world knows what you do is you stack everyone up at the line. Go watch the replay from 1964 or whatever it was. Dallas has got linebackers in the end zone 5 yards deep. It's because they didn't think about, oh, well, you know what? Maybe we should put everybody up at the line of scrimmage. That wasn't known back then, right? That wasn't hey, that's a good strategy. Let's just put everyone up at the front lines. And all you have to do, I mean, Clinton Parks could have walked in the end zone there because it was two guys blocking one guy, and Bart Starr just goes over the left side and goes in for the 1 yard touchdown. It was like everyone was making this, oh my God, this is the greatest play ever. Really? The greatest play ever. That tells you how bad football was in the 1960s. The Ice Bowl 1 yard touchdown run was the greatest football play in the 1960s. Yeah. So things are going to change. Sport's going to evolve. It doesn't matter what sport it is. There's going to be some differences. There's going to be some things that are found out, right? Okay. One of the most iconic plays in the 1980s was the Miami Dolphins hook and lateral play against the Chargers, right? With just a few seconds to go before halftime. I remember watching that play and thinking, oh my God, this play is going to change the way football is played, because you can't do that anymore, because every team knows, okay, there's 12 seconds to go. All they're going to do is keep flipping the ball back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, right? It's changed the way it's done because of what happened. So you can't compare that, a last second pass in 1987 versus a last second pass in 2011, because there's things were learned, right? Things are known. In 1987, the Chargers didn't know, hey, watch out for the hook and lateral, right? In 2011, right, it was, okay, whoever's got the guy tackles them. Everyone else watch the guys that are going to get the ball when he flicks it over to them. Everyone knows that now. The fumblerooski for the Raiders, correct, right? The fumblerooski, right? So now you can't do the fumblerooski anymore. There wasn't a rule in the books before that said, oh yeah, by the way, in the last 2 minutes of the game, you can't kick the ball ahead and until it ends up in the end zone and then cover it, right? That wasn't a thing. And then after it happens, so that's why I'm saying you can't compare the 1980s or the 1990s or the 2000s, 2010s, or 2020s, because all those things that happen through the years make the game different because of the way things are, right? So that was one of the things the 2010s baseball decade is going to be known for. What else is going to be known for? Well, I think, and this is my own personal opinion, and everyone has their own, but I think the best baseball season ever was the 2011 season. It's not because the Cardinals won. I know a lot of you automatically just associate the two things together. That was just the icing on the chocolate chip cookie brownie, right? It was just the icing on top of it that the Cardinals won that. But that season was the last season where we had the single wild card game. The last day of the season, there was 12 different teams vying for position in the playoffs. Every single game mattered, and every team showed up to play that last game, except for the Astros, who were facing the Cardinals, and the Cardinals won like 12-0. But every other team besides that, which was really good for me because that put the Cardinals in if the Braves lost. So the 2011 season for me is the greatest baseball season ever. Again, does not mean it's not because of the way the Cardinals is. It was because of the way the season played out and how much was on the line throughout the season. The playoffs again were it's like chocolate icing on top of the icing. The playoffs were probably the best playoff series ever. And of course, you're talking about an epic season. You're talking about an epic playoffs, and then you're talking about probably the most epic World Series that I can think of. Now, there's been a few where one team is one strike away from winning and then end up losing. So that's, you can compare that with other seasons out there that were similar. Well, one team was one out away or one strike away from winning the World Series and ended up losing. Kind of like Federer, who was 1 point away from winning Wimbledon and ended up losing in a I won't even get into that because that breaks my heart too. But I think 2011 being the fact that it was the last season of the single wild card, how much that meant. There wasn't a playoff game like there was in 2019. Well, okay, it doesn't matter. I kind of like the one wild card as opposed to the two. In fact, what I would probably do is I would add 2 more teams to the league, make it 32 teams. Then I would try to separate it into 4 divisions, and then you have your 4 division winners going at it and get rid of the wild card altogether. But of course, we need more baseball teams for that. But of course, that's not going to happen because they can't keep the baseball teams afloat that they do have. There's too many small market ones. That's another discussion, which we won't get into right now, but you never had the true pleasure watching guys like Starr, Unitas, Tuttle, Tarkington, and Six-Pack Hilmar. Oh, yeah, I've watched them all. They're all boring as hell. Boring as hell. I've watched them all. If you put a team against from the 1960s, right, that plays like a team in the 1960s against a team from the 2000s, they would get murdered 59-0 every time. Because it's the same thing, running first down, running second down, running third down. Or if you think you can possibly do it, you might want to throw a pass. Maybe, just maybe throw a pass. I've seen them all. They're boring. There's no strategy, which, picking up the blitzes or anything like that. Do you think that offensive line from 1960 could pick up a blitz from nowadays? You're crazy. They would get confused, befuddled, and they would lose 59-0 every time. I can almost guarantee it. I'm not talking about replaying it in action PC base or football. Action PC base football does not play a team from 1960 like it's playing in 1960. It plays it like it's using the 2018 rules. I've never seen a team from 1960 throw the ball as much as it does in action PC football. Obviously, you aren't talking about the AFL either. Yeah, I'm talking about AFL, NFL. If it's, again, there's nothing wrong with the football. It was just different. It was just boring. It's not. Go back and watch the Army Navy games from back in the 1950s and 40s, and go watch Ohio State, right? Go watch Ohio State from 1940. It's the same thing. Hopalong Cassidy, run left. Hopalong Cassidy, run right. Hopalong Cassidy, up the middle. First down. Let's do it again. It's the same thing over and over again. No strategy. There's no, using players to the best of their abilities, using different defensive alignments, none of that crazy stuff like that. So anyways, differences. Let's talk about the decade of football or of baseball. See, Clint Parks got me all riled up now. He does that. So let's talk about the hard luck loser of the 2010s, right? So 30 baseball teams. Who had it? If we were to look at the 2010s and say who were the best teams, who were the worst teams, and then who was just the team that luck was not on their side, right? Texas Rangers are actually Texas Rangers are a very good choice. They were in the World Series back-to-back years, 2010, 2011. Of course, we know what happened in 2011. I'm not going to go over that again, or maybe I will, but Texas Rangers, that's a good choice for the American League. Anyone else have any thoughts about hard luck losers for the decade? If I'm looking at one, I'm looking at let's see if I can pull up. If I can pull up. Let's see. Can I pull it up by decade? That would be nice. All right. Yes, I can. So if I'm looking at the hard luck losers of the decade, I'm going to go with the Dodgers. I think of all the teams of the decade, they had the best chance to become the team of the decade, and they failed. Of course, they lost in the division series this year. They lost in the World Series in 2018. They lost in the World Series in 2017. They lost in the championship series in 2016. They lost in the division series in 15. They lost in the division series in 14. And they lost in the championship series in 13. Unfortunately for the Dodgers, 12, 13, 14, 15 was not their year because they had to keep facing the Cardinals. And for some unknown reason, Matt Carpenter and Clayton Kershaw, go watch the replays of every time they played in the postseason, the Cardinals and the Dodgers, and Clayton Kershaw was on the mound. Chris Carpenter was hitting like 700 off of Clayton Kershaw in the playoffs. It was unbelievable. Cardinals down, Clayton Kershaw on a roll, Chris Carpenter steps up, bam, gone, Cardinals ahead. It happened like 5 years in a row. I for some reason, Chris Carpenter, lefty matchup against Clayton Kershaw. He just has his number. Go ask Clayton Kershaw after he's retired, and they'll do an interview of him, and they'll be like, "Who's the one player you did not want to face?" I almost guarantee he's going to say Chris Carpenter, because that dude from the Cardinals ruined the Dodgers seasons in 2012, 13, 14, and 15. It was just, go watch the YouTube videos and relive those games. It's just like, oh my God. And of course, making it to the World Series twice, 17 and 18, and they didn't even show up in these, which is kind of disappointing. 2011 and 10, they did not make the playoffs. So they made the playoffs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times in 10 years, which is not bad. They made it to the divisions, or they made it to the championship series 4 times. They made it to the World Series twice, and they have nothing to show for it. Well, I guess not nothing. They won the National League pennant. They won their division pennants. So, I mean, they got something to show for it, but I mean, the goal is to win the World Series. They had the best shot at it year after year in the playoffs, and they couldn't do it. Have I thought about doing a Chris Carpenter replay? Wow, that would be really, really tough. I'm talking about Chris Carpenter, the batter, not the pitcher, guys. Just so we can make that clear. Chris Carpenter, not the pitcher. We're talking about the batter, the third baseman. I'm talking about Chris Carpenter, Mr. Elf with his little beard. That's who I'm talking about. He just somehow, some way, I don't know if it's a lefty-lefty matchup or whatever, but year after year, it seemed like the Dodgers would go up against the Cardinals. I'd be nervous as hell because I'd be like, oh, the Dodgers are a much better team than the Cardinals. And then the Cardinals would just blow them out of the water because of Chris Carpenter and his insane. Yeah, so let's just take a random game here from what is this? What year is this? This is 2014 Division Series, Cardinals, Dodgers, and we will look who is pitching first. Let's see if Clayton Kershaw was pitching in this game. Matt Carpenter, 2 for 4, 2 hits, 4 RBIs, and batted 400 against, and a home run and a double for Matt Carpenter. It's just go back and look at any random game that Kershaw pitched. Kershaw could have won the Dodgers a couple series if he just didn't have to face Matt Carpenter. I keep calling him Chris Carpenter. It's Matt Carpenter. My apologies. Matt Carpenter. Somebody got me off on the Chris Carter thing, and now Matt Carpenter. That's what I meant to say. Apologies, not Chris Carpenter. I was thinking of Matt, probably said Chris, and then got Chris on the brain. So, yeah, the Dodgers, I think they had the best opportunity. I think I remember hearing that they had the 3rd most wins of the decade behind the Yankees. The Yankees were number 1. Number 2 was... Who was number 2? I forget who number 2 was, but I think the Dodgers were number 3 most wins of the decade. So for having the 3rd most wins, being in the playoffs 7 straight years, going to the World Series, going to the Division Series, but not having anything to show for it, I think for me, unfortunately they were just unlucky. Unlucky is the best way I can put it. If we had a American League, if I had to look at the American League, now that's it. If I had to choose an American League, let's go to teams here. I would maybe choose the Rangers for the American League. Although the Rangers haven't been very good the last few years, which kind of takes a little bit away from it. Because they only were good in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, maybe 15. Then they kind of faded the last 5 years. So I don't know if I would consider them, the hard luck losers. Yeah, it's hard for the American League, really, because the American League has had some really good teams. But usually these really good teams, if I was to say the hard luck losers of the 2010s decades for the American League, you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say the Yankees, actually. I think the Yankees, as many wins, most wins They have no World Series appearances. Most wins of the decade of any team. And if we look at their seasons, let's take a look, shall we? Let's look at teams. We want the New York Yankees. All right, so in the 2010s, 2019, they lost in the championship game. 2018, they lost in the division series. They lost in the championship series in 2017. 2015, they lost in the wild card. 2012, they lost in the championship series. 2011, they lost in the championship series. And 2010, they lost in the championship series. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, 7 playoff appearances. No World Series appearance. And remember, 2009, they won the World Series in 2009. So they were just coming off winning the World Series going into this decade. They made the playoffs 7 times, made the championship series 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and lost all 4 of them. Of course, we're talking about a big market team, plenty of money. Average attendance is going to be 3.7, 3.6, 3.5, 3.2, 3.4, 3.1, 3.0, 3.1, 3.4, and 3.3. That's probably got to average 3.3 or 3.4 million paying customers a year. Big market team, win-loss percentage. They were never below 500. They were 636, 617, 562, 519, 537, 519, 525, 586, 599, 586. So I don't, never being below 500, making the playoffs 7 times, never even making the World Series, losing in the championship series 4 times. Hard luck losers. I can't call the Red Sox hard luck losers. They won the World Series twice. How can you possibly call them hard luck losers if they win the World Series at all, let alone twice? Now let's talk about the greatest teams of the decade. And then we'll wrap this up. Talk about the greatest teams of the decade. So let's look at American League first. So obviously, right off the bat, I'm thinking Red Sox. The reason I'm thinking Red Sox are that they're only American League team that won the World Series 3 times. I'm sorry, only American League team that won the World Series twice. The Astros played in 3. No, 8. Yes, 1, 2, 3. 1. No, 8. The Astros only played in 2. Sorry, they played in 2, 1, 1. The Royals won 1. The Royals were in 2. Boston won 2, and they were in 2. Astros won 1. So it's going to be close between the Astros and the Red Sox for team of the decade, but I have a feeling I'm probably going to go Houston Astros. I think the Astros were bad back in the early 2000s. Yeah, they were really bad. 469 winning percentage in 2010. In 2011, they were 346. 2012, they were 340. 2013, they were only 315. Yeah, so they only made the playoffs 4 times in the decade. So they are definitely not team of the decade. They've been really good recently, but they're Early 2000s, put them way out. They wouldn't even be probably in the top 10. Probably not even in the top 10. If we look at the Red Sox, though, Red Sox Nation is going to show up here and start cussing at me. But 2010 to 2019, how many times did the Red Sox make the playoffs? 2010 to 2019, that's 10 years. How many times did the Red Sox make the playoffs? I'll give you guys a second to think about it. How many times in the decade did the Red Sox make the playoffs? Do 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 do. Pick card, any card. Which card you going to take? This one? This one right here? Oh, this one right here? Right here? All right, I'm going to put that on top. Remember, it's on top. Sports Five Machine says 5. Any other guessers out there? Come on. Spicer said he was going to say 6 times. The actual answer is 4 times. They only made the playoffs 4 times. Of those 4 times, they won 2 World Series and they lost in the Division Series twice. So they went in 2013, they won the World Series, and they won the World Series in 2018. They made the playoffs in the 16s and 17s. Besides that, nothing. The Red Sox have a tendency to have a good season, then a bad season. Good season, bad season. So they won the World Series twice, but only made the playoffs 4 times. So hard to make them team of the decade. You know what? And this might be the worst and best time ever. But I might even make the Yankees as the best team of the decade as well as the worst team of the decade. Because at least they made the playoffs 7 times. Who else in the American League has made the playoffs at least 5 or 6 times? There's nobody. The Orioles only made it a couple times. Let's see. The White Sox, they haven't been good. The Indians. Let's look at the Indians now. Let's give the Indians some love here. Let's see. 4 times. Made the playoffs 4 times, lost 1 World Series. So compare that to the Red Sox, not as good. So it's not going to be the Indians, the Tigers. Let's look at the Tigers. Tigers. How many times did they make the playoffs? 4 times. 11, 12, 13, and 14. They made 1 World Series, which they lost. So they're probably not team of the decade. We already looked at the Astros, the Royals. Now let's look at the Royals. Let's give the love to the Royals. No, we will not give the love to the Royals. The Royals only made the playoffs twice. They won a World Series and they lost a World Series. They only make the playoffs twice, though, in a decade. You can't be team of the decade, even though they won the World Series. No, not them. Let's look at the Los Angeles Angels. They made the playoffs once. They're out. The Twins, poor Twins. They made the playoffs a whopping 3 times, and they never won a game. Good for them. They're out. Oakland. Let's look at Oakland. Maybe Oakland. They made the playoffs 5 times. So far, the Oakland Athletics have made the playoffs more than equal to at least. But they lost in the wild card 3 times. So they made the playoffs, but lost 3 times in the wild card, and they lost the other 2. So they did not win any games. So they're out. Let's see. Who else do we have? Seattle. I'm sure Seattle's not going to be the team of the decade. Nope. They made the playoffs 0. That was easy. The Rays. Come on, Rays. Do me proud. They made the playoffs 4 times. Pretty respectable for a small market team. Average attendance. We just looked at the attendance for the Yankees, right? The Rays, 1.1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.2, 1.2, 1.4. So 2014 was a good year for them. 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, 1.8 was their highest. That was back in 2010. Ever since 2010, it's been going down. 1.8, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, 4, 2, 2, 2, 1, 1. Yep. So it's been going down for the last 10 years pretty substantially every single year. But they made the playoffs 4 times. Good job, Rays. Texas Rangers, team of the decade. How many times? 5 times. They made the playoffs 5 times, and they lost 2 World Series. No World Series victories. I'm talking about the American League. Yes, the Giants won in the National League. I'm talking about the American League. We haven't done the National League yet, buddy. So Texas 5 times, lost 2 World Series. Let's look at the Toronto Blue Jays. It's the last team in the American League, right? And they lost 2 playoffs. So of all those teams, you have a choice between the Red Sox, who made the playoffs 4 times, won 2 World Series, or the Yankees, who made the playoffs 7 times but did not make the World Series. I'm going to say World Series count for something. I'm going to have to give the American League Team of the Decade to the Boston Red Sox. As much as it pains me, you guys know that pains me. I would not do that if there was any way out of it, but I just don't see a way out of it. Somebody give me a way out of it, because that's crazy.
3:30.
That's an hour.
Off of Fruitvale.
All right. All right.
Go in late.
So, yeah, as much as it pains me, World Series for the American League, 2, only made the playoffs 4 times, but the 2 wins have got to count for something. Higher Ground Gaming. Yes, I know. It's kills me to say it. Team of the Decade is going to be the Red Sox. For the American League, for the National League, I mean, that's a foregone conclusion. It is going to be the San Francisco Giants. Unfortunately, they only made the playoffs 4 times, but they won 3 World Series. They had the most World Series. They made it 4 times. They haven't been good a lot of the years, but the years they did make it, they made it count. So, Team of the Decade, as much as it pains me, because I'm not a San Francisco Giants guy at all. I do not like the Giants. I don't like their managers usually. I don't like their players usually. Something about them annoys me. Their announcers annoy me. Their stadium annoys me. Everything about them annoys me. Almost as bad as the Red Sox. But they won 3 World Series, which you got to give them credit for. 2010, 2012, 2014. So in the National League and for overall, I'm going to give the we're going to give the San Francisco Giants the 2010 Team of the Decade to the team out in San Francisco. It was hard for me, Higher Ground Gaming. It was very hard for me to say the Red Sox. I mean, I've been tempted to go with the Yankees because of their 7 out of 10. The Red Sox only made it 4 times. 2 World Series, 4 times. 7 appearances out of 10, though. That makes. I put the Yankees as the hard luck loser of the American League. So it's hard to make the hard luck loser also the team of the decade in the American League. So your Red Sox squeak it out by that much. That much. I'm having a heart attack. I gotta go because I'm dying. I can't say it anymore. See you all later.